What's up, my miners of intelligence and consciousness? I'm Rick Brooks, and this is Rick's Mind. Today with me, I have Kerry Finsand, who is an entrepreneur and a mental health advocate. What's up, brother? Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, one of the things I think I want to talk to you about is I want to start out with the entrepreneurial spirit that you possess. Oh, yeah. And I want our listeners to know what you started at a very young age and kind of take us through that journey.
Well, there's actually been I'll start you off really when I was in grade school is when I first started. So we want to kind of go old school. The first thing, my sister and I started a kids garage sale. We would charge our friends and neighbors money to have a garage sale at our house. So it kind of started at that. And then we did this like nickel arcade, like we made like our own like fun things for kids to do outside, like courses, like golf and all types of stuff. And we charged, I forgot what we called that, like some type of like fun land or something. So I always kind of was around that. And then growing up, my dad, he was in sales and he'd always help me put together. He always asked me to help him put together like marketing packets and stuff. And so I was always helping with that. So it's kind of always this thing. Then high school, I was in an entrepreneurial camp in high school. And then in college, I started my first business as part of my business course I was taking. I aerated lawns. It was called Archer Aerating. And it had like this little guy shooting a bow and arrow. Ooh. And it would go up and land in the ground like it's aerating lawns and stuff. Oh. And it was a great little business. Like I did quite well with that. And after I graduated college, people still wanted me to aerate their lawns every spring and fall. But I was like, I'm good. But great experience, everything. So from there, let's see here. I started working for this website called City Search. It was kind of like Yelp before Yelp. And I sold online advertising. And that's when I really started getting into the kind of the online space and kind of being interested in what was available. From there, I started networking, going to lots of different meetups. I ended up working for a number of different startups. One of them, I worked with the inventor of the wiki, Ward Cunningham. He didn't create Wikipedia, but he created the wiki technology, and he's based in Oregon. And I worked with him at a company called About Us. And it was basically an About Us page for every type of business, but it was through like wiki technology. So that's kind of my beginning into the foray. And then from there, I just was such a curious person, student, where I just went to a lot of networking events, met a lot of different people. I started my own Portland beer wiki because I got really into craft beer around probably 2007, or maybe a little before that. And just kind of grew from there. And then I started this thing called Taplister in 2009 with several people that I met at this thing called Beer and Blog. It was this kind of geeky get together. It was kind of like Portland's tech meetup in the early days. And, we go to the Green Dragon, which now is Rogue on the east side of Portland.
I miss the Green Dragon.
Oh, man. Actually, ironically, I ran into one of the former owners of Green Dragon. And I talked to him about why that place was so special, because at the time, it was kind of like our Cheers. Like everyone would go there, everybody. And I met so many amazing people there. Now in Portland, it's a double-edged sword. We have so many amazing beer places to go to. So maybe you don't see all those people. You have to take a little more effort. But from there, I met a guy who had some ideas about making it easier to find beers online with like, he wanted to do like a webcam that shows like a live chalkboard. And then I wanted to do something where it would show beers that are on tap in real time and have a search engine for that. And that's what we created. We came together and it was this kind of side project, and I was kind of our de facto leader, and it kind of started off as a side project, and then it kind of grew into a company. And so there's a lot more into that. So I guess if you have any questions, maybe specifically getting into that.
So, I mean, my first question definitely when it comes to starting Tap Listers, you meet people at the Green Dragon, and I'm wondering, like, how many people were involved at the inception? Did you bootstrap this, or did you have to get capital in order to get the technology developed?
Well, I would say that Taplister actually went through probably, gosh, maybe 3 or 4 different phases. The first phase, side project, and I think that's why it grew so organically, because we're also passionate about it. And at the time, I mean, this is kind of funny and ridiculous, but if there was a beer I wanted on tap, I literally would call a bar and say, "Hey, what do you have on tap?" And I really wanted a certain beer or something. And so it was out of need, like, how anyone starts anything out of need. We're trying to solve a problem. We're not really, maybe it's not everyone's problem, but it's a good problem. So anyway, so we kind of were figuring that out. We came together. There was 4 of us. There was Kevin, who was their developer. Scott was kind of worked at Belmont Station in the past and some other beer places. And then Ken was our iPhone developer. And we just kind of started working on things, and we all just kind of put just barely any money at all into it to kind of get it going. And then eventually I was like, we need to have some money coming in to sustain this thing, even as a side project. And so as someone that's always done online, or someone that's done sales his whole life, I was like, let's start putting ads on our website. And in our actual iPhone app too, actually, before this was even a thing in apps, we created our own little ad server and would serve local ads in there from beer festivals and restaurants and bars. And so we started kind of growing it from there, and we made a little bit of money. And then we launched at one of the biggest beer festivals in the U.S., the Oregon Brewers Festival on the waterfront, which is coming back this week for the first time in a number of years.
Oh, wow.
And that fest was such a big deal. I mean, over the course of, it would go on a Wednesday through Sunday, you'd have, I don't know, was it 60,000 people go to it or something? And people from around the world would go there. And so I was like, we have to launch there. It makes so much sense because it's our audience. So what I ended up doing was I negotiated with the people that run the festival, and I said, hey, we're going to have a number of people helping people find, we're going to walk around. I'm going to have ambassadors. We're going to be Taplister ambassadors. We had t-shirts made up, and we're going to help people. We're going to educate people on their beers on tap, as well as like how to use our app and find what's available. And because what we launched was the world's first live beer search engine based off of Twitter. So you could actually go online, you could use Twitter, and you can actually ask Twitter, like, hey, what's on tap at XYZ bar? And a little robot would come back to you and answer that to you.
Like a chat bot?
Yeah, kind of like a chat bot. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is kind of early on.
Yeah, you're way ahead of the curve here. That's amazing.
So we did that. And so I negotiated, like, gosh, I think it was maybe $1,000 or more in free tokens and mugs. Plus I got us to get a free booth at the festival and a bunch of advertisements like in their book. Plus they got me a bunch of press coverage where I was talking on all the news stations. So it was just the best way to launch. And I love that way of launching. I love launching things, and I love bootstrapping. And so it was so much fun for me to be creative and figure out a way to make this passion thing, come true. And we had just a great amount of people interested. And then people like, oh, we want this in our city and stuff. So we slowly added other cities, and especially like Seattle and other like kind of Northwest cities. And then we started getting people from different countries around the world contacting us, and that was just really cool. And so that's kind of the first phase of Taplister. Then kind of what happened was we had a number. Not everyone was kind of interested in doing it anymore because it was it was a side project and stuff, and people, especially our Kevin, who was a developer on it. He's coding all day long. He doesn't really want to keep coding other things and stuff, but he was our main coder and everything, and he did a great job. And so, Ken and I, who's the iPhone developer, we ended up buying out the rest of the people, and then we ran with it for a while. And then I went through like a little kind of mini MBA kind of program, if you will, but which is uncredited, called it was called Portland 10. It's now called 10X, but basically it's an intense boot camp where you go in the summertime. I want to say it's 3 months long, where you work with CPAs and attorneys and everyone in between to kind of help you with your business. And then from there, I just learned a lot about, running a business and what to do, what not to do. So long story short, that we did that for a while. And then I was like, you know what? I need a job again. Cause I quit my job earlier doing social media marketing for a company at the time. And I just wanted to focus on Taplister. And then my friend from City Search we worked together at, he started working for Groupon. And he's like, "Oh, you got to come work for Groupon." I was like, "Yeah, like I'm doing this program right now in the summertime. I'm really busy and like I just don't have time for it." And then once I was done with the program, or just about done with the program, I was like, "Yeah, I need to get back into a job again." And that's when I switched to go work for Groupon. And we still did Taplister on the side, but Groupon was, something paying the bills.
Yeah. 100%. And so would you say that this is like the second phase of Taplister, right? Where you were doing it full time and you're like, this isn't quite paying the bills, not quite meeting my personal needs. I'm going to get a job at Groupon and kind of push this back to a side hustle. And how long did it stay during the second phase? How long were you in that phase?
That's a good question. It might've been a couple years. I decided I was kind of at the point with Taplister where I was like, we don't have all the right resources we need. And either we need to maybe stop doing this or we need to find some other people to make this work. And so I ended up buying out Ken, who was one of the original founders of Taplister with me. So I bought him out. And I was like, I need to kind of go for this and everything. And so while I was working for Groupon, I actually had I applied to be part of this tech incubator called Upstart Labs. It's no longer in Portland. It's no longer available anymore, but it was an amazing experience. So I got accepted into this tech incubator while I was working at Groupon. And I was kind of it was a tough place to be, a very good place to be, but tough because at Groupon, I was in sales, but then I actually pitched them on a role in the company, which I kind of became an intrapreneur for that company, where I created this marketing position as a community manager where I helped out people locally to kind of part PR, part marketing, part support. So I created this amazing role for myself, but then I got accepted to this tech incubator, and then I raised $250,000, and I was like, you know what? I have to go for it. I have to go for this Taplister thing because this is an opportunity I can't pass. Mm-hmm. And so it was very hard to leave Groupon because that was an amazing place to work. There's so many amazing people that I'd met there, and some I'm still very good, close friends with. Plus they're based in Chicago. I'm a Cubs fan, so I always love going out there, visit my boys out there and stuff. But so with Taplister, we had this, all this kind of stuff going on. And then the next phase, the third phase, what happened was I got this tech incubator. Then I was by myself. And one thing I've learned, I would not start a tech-oriented business again without a good co-founder who is high level, like CTO or who's been programming for a long time and has some business sense too, ideally, which is so hard to find and everything. Because my mentors, my advisors at the Upstart Labs, they helped me find somebody I found somebody that helped me vet this person. So I found a person to bring on as a co-founder of the new Taplister, and he was going to be my CTO. Mm-hmm. And he was just going to work part-time for me and then eventually transition to full-time. And I ended up, he had digital beer boards. So basically a lot of places now, instead of having a physical chalkboard, there's a digital one. So he had a technology that had a digital chalkboard, which is basically, just a screen with the tap list and everything. And then you use some type of device to hook up to internet, maybe it's like a Chromecast or a computer, whatever. So I ended up acquiring his technology at the time. So I took him on, we acquired his technology, and I was excited. We were in the right trajectory for everything I wanted to have happen. Turns out he decided that it was too much for him to do, like basically 20 hours a week with me and 20 hours a week on his other job. But I think probably he was about to have a kid. I think that was probably the main issue, like, stability and stuff. So, but it really put me in a bad spot. And so I was going to then launch this new version of Taplister. We completely rebuilt the platform. We had a brand new iPhone app. And we're going to launch at the Great American Beer Festival, which is the biggest in the nation, that's in Denver every fall. Mm-hmm. And it's a big deal. And so I had a whole marketing plan about launching there. And what happened was, with this guy leaving the company, I have 2 months to figure this out. So the $50,000 salary I was going to pay myself that year, I had to pay a software development team so they could just finish what I needed to get finished on our platform in like 2 months. Mm-hmm. And that was really tough, because then I'm going to making $0.
Yeah.
And that is, I'm fortunate that my wife has always had, a good job, and I've always, even being entrepreneurial, I'm still smart about money, and, I'm not someone that needs all the fancy bells and whistles and stuff. So, that made things tough for sure. And not having that person as part of the team, it took me away from what I need to do, is selling. And I still was selling, but when you have all these other things to do, just like when you're doing a podcast, there's lots of stuff to do.
Oh yeah.
So you can only do so much yourself. And I ended up running Taplister for a while, and it was awesome. Like we had some good traction for a bit. I brought on this developer who is an awesome guy, and we're still friends and everything. And he worked for me, I don't know, for a year or something, and then I had to let him go, which is really hard, because the good thing about him, I was like, you're going to get a job that's going to pay you more than what I'm paying you, and you'll be fine.
Did you just not have the income to afford to keep him?
I didn't have exactly. And I, if I'm not paying myself and I don't have the income coming in, and I don't have somebody to have as a solid partner, it gets lonely. And this is the thing about being an entrepreneur, especially a solopreneur. It gets real lonely. It gets tough, because you basically are having the conversations in your head. And that's why it's important to, talk to other people, talk to your friends, or have like a mastermind group or something where you can talk to people about your business ideas and have accountability and everything. So that made it kind of tough. And so I was doing it for a while, and then I was kind of just, the nice thing is, how we had things designed was, it was a system that I designed that, from a sales perspective, it kind of supported itself. Mm-hmm. Like I got a fair amount of leads and stuff, and then I would just call people up and, check in on them. But then what would happen is you get a bill for like your technology is having issues, and then you're like, oh, cool, we're doing pretty good right now. Well, we made $5,000 this month. Like, cool. Oh, now that $5,000 is going to, a contract developer to make sure this new feature is working right or something. So That's where it really hurts in the early phases for technology. So then I did it for a while, and I got some publicity around the country. Entrepreneur Magazine did an article on me, Mashable, a bunch of cool things happened. But then I was at the point where I just don't think that I can do this by myself anymore. I've tried all these different phases. And so I've done everything I can. I think it's time to say this isn't going to work anymore. And so that was really difficult. So I decided to make an announcement through email, newsletter, website, social media, that we're shutting down. But something really fun happened that was amazing. The community was so supportive of Taplister. So we had all these people wanting to help out any way they can. And I was just blown by. And then I had people starting wanting to buy it from me. And so it started becoming real. And I had probably 3 three solid offers, and I would say two for sure, two really good solid offers, and I'm like, this is amazing. So I ended up actually selling majority stake in Taplister to someone else. His name's Mark Meyer, good guy. And then basically he hired me back to work for him and get some ownership in the company. So it was actually the best world for me. Then he wasn't a developer, but he had a little bit of a technical background and has done some software development in the past, but he was definitely a good operator and stuff. So that helped. And then we did it for a while, but I think it was just, he ran it for a number of years, and then I think he finally shut it down a couple years ago. So it just kind of ran its course. I think if things aligned earlier, I know we could have made it work, and it would have been something that, as a small business, just for a couple of people running it and making like a decent living and but living your lifestyle. That's always been important to me, is like, I don't have to get rich. I just want enough to pay my bills and do what I want to do, but I want to do what I enjoy doing and have my passion, shine through what I do. So Taplister basically has taken us to the whole phase there. So for me, it's really cool to take a business from concept through its ups and downs, and then to sell it. So it went through its full life cycle. And so I'm really proud I was able to do that and make that happen, because a lot of businesses fail quicker, and then a lot of people take a lot of tech money and they never pay anyone back at all. I have friends that started tech companies that paid people back nothing. So I wasn't able to pay my investors back everything, but I was happy to give them opportunity to get some money back at least. And they had for a while shares into the new version of Taplister. So I felt good that I made that effort and stuff, because I don't want to take people's money unless I have to. And I don't want to, because it makes it more real when you take someone else's money.
Yeah. Because they're betting on you. They're making a calculated bet on you and their belief in your ability to pull this off. So I definitely understand that. I think that is an amazing accomplishment. It is interesting. One thing I do want to talk about is the digital boards, because you see that in every tap house you go into. And you had the keys to that technology for sure. Are there different versions, or is this all based off of what Taplister had in the early days?
No. There's we definitely didn't invent that concept. No. And it's funny because when Taplister launched, we launched a few months before this other company called Tap Hunter. And they're out of San Diego. And it was so weird, just how similar everything we both did. And I met the people who started that when I was at South by Southwest a number of years ago.
Nice.
But yeah, it's interesting just how people can come up with ideas that are similar, but I don't know. It's just wild.
I definitely think so. But I mean, that's one chapter that was in your life. It was full of excitement and challenges, and you were able to come out ahead for the most part. And so I kind of want, one of the things I didn't mention, and I was supposed to, and during your intro, was that you're a podcast host. And I did mention you're a mental health advocate. So I'm kind of curious how you ended up becoming a mental health advocate. What was that journey like? Was this awakening because of Taplister, or were there other factors that led you to really hone in on your mental health and take that more seriously?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm someone that I think I probably always had some level of anxiety my whole life. But I went through depression when I was in college, and that kind of changed things for me. And so over the years, I try to better understand myself. And I would say that this year has really been a year for me of self-awareness. And I've spent a lot of time in trying to figure out me and all my complexities, inside there. And so I just been doing, I've seen a counselor for many years, different counselors, read books, do, journal. I mean, try to do a little everything, but for me, I guess the thing that has always been the best thing for my mental health is exercise. And one of the challenges I have is when I gave up basketball years ago because of a back injury. And that was my favorite thing to do, period. It's like, that was like all I needed to do, just play basketball, and you're just having fun and stuff. So over the years, I just kind of trying to find different ways to kind of help my mental health out. And then the last few years have been real rough for me, and with the pandemic. And I worked at a place that in the early days didn't really believe in the pandemic, and we had to work in our office. I had to work in my office the whole time. And I'll tell you, I was sick for like 5 weeks, and I didn't have a lot of vacation or sick time. So I was going to the office sick, which I think is pretty lame to have to do that,
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if I had COVID or not at the time. It was January of 2020. So it could have been. But so I kind of felt trapped there in a lot of different ways, and it wasn't the best, place to work at and stuff. And so last year I left there, and then this past year I just been trying to find, where can I fit in? Because this is the one thing about being an entrepreneur. There's a double-edged sword to it, where it's great because you learn a lot of skills. And I would say I'm definitely a generalist that leans more towards, launching things and sales and ideas. And I'm not a person who is great I'm not an analytical person. Like, in some ways I am, but I'm not like a spreadsheet. Like my wife's in finance for a bank. She is all about numbers. She gets that. My mind doesn't work that way. So I've been kind of learning more about what my mind is best at, and trying to find the right place to put me in. Because I think it's like a sports analogy. I think about more recently, let's say like Chris Paul. When Chris Paul went to Arizona, to Phoenix,
The Suns, yeah.
The Suns, he was like the perfect fit there. That was like the perfect place for him to be. And other places, he did fine and this and that, but he didn't you saw the real Chris Paul, I think, kind of come out. And I think that's kind of the same thing with whether you're in business for yourself or you're working for somebody, trying to find that right environment where you can shine. And it's tough. Like at Groupon, absolutely amazing and stuff. And for me, the last several places I've worked at, just wasn't the right fit. And so those are some of the things I've kind of learned about myself, and I think are good for anyone to take away. And then recently I thought it would be good to take this course, this mental health first aid course.
Okay.
I found out about it let's say, I don't know, maybe 3-4 weeks ago. I wanted to take it locally. I couldn't find any place that was teaching it locally. So I took it online. And the concept basically is, let's say like regular CPR. The point of regular CPR is to kind of help assess the situation and get people help. But you're not that expert. You have to, it might be a dangerous situation. You got to walk away. So this is the same type of thing. And like having the right types of skills, and just some basic knowledge of understanding, what people are going through at the time. And they have this framework that is called ALGE, and it stands for, assess for risk, listen non-judgmentally, give reassurance and information, encourage appropriate professional help, encourage self-help and other support strategies. So it's all about learning like the risk factors involved and the warning signs for people. So when you're interacting with people, trying to look at their body language, how are they talking, and making sure that you're in the right mindset too. Because if your self-care is not there, you should not be helping out other people.
Yeah.
You have to make sure that you're okay, because you might be. And I know I've been like that way before, where I'm trying to help people out, but I'm not always in the best spot, because it's just in my nature to help people. And so this is kind of an interesting program that they had. It's about a 10-12 hour course. It's like $140. It certifies you for 3 years. And it's just information. It's not good. It's not only good for me, but it's personally to learn some of these things in this class, but also to when I talk to other people. And so now I've just been trying to get the word about this class too, and help I have some other friends that are talking about taking the course. So that's kind of where I've kind of come back today, is like kind of reassessing what makes sense, because in the past, I burned myself out multiple times in the past 20 years easily, because I get so involved in things. I get so amped up, and I can pour a lot of energy into things. And like with Tapless here, we did so much when we launched that. We accomplished a lot in a short period of time. And I know I need to listen to your recent interview with is it Jesse Gold?
Yes, yeah, Jesse Gold about burnout. Yeah.
I need to listen. I need to listen to that. I have a note, but yeah, it's just you got to figure out the best way to handle things, and that's why with this podcast that I'm doing called Successfully Depressed.
I love the name.
I don't want to.
I fucking love the name, dude. Yeah.
Sometimes when I say it, I'm like, oh, are people like scared of it? So that's sometimes I like it, but sometimes I'm like, oh, people are going to be like, what is that? What's this guy talking about? But that's kind of the point of it too.
So you're an enigma to me. You're an anomaly, because here you're kind of living a lot of people's dreams, being an entrepreneur, having this amazing run at a startup, all the highs and lows that come with that. You also, what people don't know is you're also very into fitness and health, and monitoring what you eat, and you care about sleep. You check all the boxes of someone that would be like in control and like dialed in on their mental health. And yet like it's an issue, and it's so bizarre to me, because, and I think every single person on the planet has dealt with their own issues at one time or another. But it's interesting to me that these are some reoccurring themes, burning yourself out, potentially being depressed, having trouble sleeping, tons of anxiety, like these things, you don't fit the narrative. Like, you're in shape, and I know you exercise, so it's mind blowing to me. It's not I like to, as much as I hate putting labels on people, and but we all do it out of convenience, right? Same with stereotypes.
Yes.
So I would like to, I want to put you over in this box where it's like, hey, this guy, he gets it, and this is why he's not depressed. He's successful. But that's not the case. It's not the case, right? And so it is like it's fascinating to me that, I'm jacked that you have this podcast and you are helping that, and I feel like it's a smaller segment of the population that might be in the same camp as you are, where it's like, well, you have everything, why are you upset, right? But it's definitely, I'm still trying to figure out what's going on. It's basically it is a long roundabout thing. What's wrong with you, man? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm trying to figure it out still myself. So if you figure it out, let me know, because I would love to get those cliff notes. But it's like a lot of people. Unfortunately, a lot of people are like that. You see people like, oh, they're they seem so happy and successful and this and that. But when everyone's different, and we're driven by things from when we were kids and stuff that, it's trauma and other things in our lives along the way that drive us to be a certain way. It's also coming from, maybe it's the values that your parents installed in you and the people that you hang out with. So a lot of it, molds us, and we don't really recognize it, and we don't necessarily want to be a certain way. And the thing about labels, and that's actually, I'm kind of bouncing around here, but the labels just popped in my head. That's one thing about the mental health course is it says, don't put labels on people. So that's for sure. And then using a framework of language where you're talking to them as a person, not as a condition. Yeah. So being careful what you say. And that's still really, like, even for someone that deals with, I deal with ADHD, depression, anxiety. So I still am having a hard time understanding how to explain that to people, like when they're saying things and trying to support them, the type of right words to say myself. And I am a person that deals with certain things. So it's wild. But for entrepreneurs, there's a recent UC Berkeley study that states 72% of entrepreneurs in this study had some type of mental health issue. So mental health in entrepreneurs is actually very common. the issues that they have because of the highs and the lows,
Mm-hmm.
and the environments that they're putting themselves in. And it said of that study, 30% had a history of depression, 19 a history of ADHD, 12% substance abuse, and 11% bipolar. So lots of different. I wanted to bring that fact out to kind of go along with entrepreneurship, and how one thing I'm trying to look into more is it the right fit for everybody? And I love it, but also sometimes I'm like, maybe this isn't always the right fit for me. And that's why, like when I was at Groupon, I became an entrepreneur, which I didn't know about that term until recently. I interviewed my friend Matthew Rolnick, who wrote a book called How to Find Your Yay. And he was furloughed from Groupon, and he was trying to figure out what he wanted to do next. And so he kind of talks about, leveraging his network of people to create opportunities for yourself. And he wrote an article in Forbes about entrepreneurship. And so I found that really interesting because I never really knew the title or the label for that. But that's one thing I think is a great fit for some people. And that's like, for me, for example, I think if I'm in the right team, I want to be an entrepreneur, or if I have the right support, I want to be with it. I want to have at least a team aspect or something like that, because I thrive off of those environments. And then for my friend, he created entrepreneurship at a friend's company of his. And so it just kind of made me think about that lately. I never even thought about that. Like, that's because you can be creative and you can also have a paycheck, which is nice, and have some structure. So that's something that right now, actually, in my podcast, that's something I want to observe more, and I want to kind of walk through people through the different options. Like, you can be an entrepreneur, you can be an entrepreneur, and then also talk about, is this a hobby or is this a business? Because a lot of times, I've even done this myself too, where I've done like little hobbies and side hustles, but it's not really a business, it's not something that's sustainable. It's something that you're trying out. So these are things right now that I'm researching, exploring, as well as mental health in the workspace, in a twofold thing. One, for employees to have a safe environment to talk to somebody about if they're having a challenge, because under the American Disabilities Acts, they are supposed to get help up to a certain amount. Like if your job, you're not able to do it for some reason, they try to have to make reasonable accommodations. So that's something I'm learning about right now, because I had a situation at a job that didn't give that to me and stuff. So I'm trying to find ways that I can help other people out and potentially help myself out in the future around that topic. The other thing is educating the management and the culture of a company on mental health. And there's a lot of great, DEI programs. They're doing more into diversity right now. But I feel the mental health is definitely missing. And nowadays, more than ever, just how our society is designed with like Facebook and all the, they're getting the dopamine hits from getting a like, and the more stats you get on your podcast download, like it's just kind of creating this culture where it's so goal driven, where there's just, you have to be careful if you're only too goal driven. So I just been myself exploring a lot in that realm. And I've been trying to look at, okay, I am very goal driven and I've been able to accomplish a lot, but systems are better than goals often. And that's what I've been studying. Like there's Atomic Habits.
Man, yes.
Yeah.
And I do want to hold this thought, because I do have, what is DEI? I don't know what that means.
Yeah, that's what is it, like diversity?
Is it like diversity,
inclusion? Equity and inclusion.
Equity
training?
and inclusion. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I just was like, what the fuck is DEI, bro? It sounds like an organization in the government that's going to abduct.
It's the department. Yeah, it's like the DEA. Yeah. So watch out there. But yeah, sorry. Yeah, and that I didn't know that term really probably until recently too. So I'm learning a bunch of this new stuff and absorbing all this information.
Acronyms.
But yeah, Atomic Habits, it's a book I haven't read yet, but I read some excerpts from it, and then is it Scott Adams? Is that his name? that did the Dilbert cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
This is a concept that he's really all about. I'm not sure if he is the first person that came up with it. Who knows? But it's really interesting. Just like the systems, like if we set goals, then we feel like a failure until we reach that goal. But we have systems in place for basically hitting goals, every day. And so that is something I've been really fascinated about. So right now I'm kind of a randomness of like learning. I'm just like self-awareness and just trying to understand how it can make sense of all this and help people out. And then from this, maybe I'll have a clearer view of something that I think is helpful to myself and others.
Well, let me share a story with you, because when you said systems over goals, I got really jacked, because that is the key. This podcast is a system. It's one that DeMarco and I have built over. We tried, John, you can pipe in. We fucking tried the goal route several times. And every time we tried the goal route, we failed. And it wasn't until like I was ready. John always was ready. John's a gamer. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until I was ready and was like, let's take this seriously, that him and I sat down and we built a system. And when you build a system, you're able to reach the goals that you may have set earlier, but in a much more controlled, thought out way. It's a lot more methodical. There's not as many highs and lows. And there's a lot of things that have to happen that are like quite boring, but like systems are the shit. They're amazing. It's building the systems that can get a little confusing. And there's a lot of trial and error that go into that, and tweaking, right? You got to be tweaking. You got to be nice. But like, dude, systems over goals is, if you can create a system in your life that you incorporate exercise, eating correctly, and then a good work-life balance. If that's part of your system, fuck, dude.
Yep.
You're miles ahead of where a lot of people would be.
Yeah, and that's exactly when I have like a set schedule. That's definitely when I thrive, and it just obviously makes things a lot easier. So, and it's funny too. It's like a lot of people. This is the way I am, and I think a lot of people are like this too, where we know what to do, but it's hard for us to do it for ourselves. It's so much easier for other people to, like, if I was to say, oh, Rick, like, this is all you need to do, like, like come out with the different things, like that would be pretty easy for me. But for yourself, that's where it gets, it can be, much more of a challenge and everything. So, but I agree with that. And that's why with this podcast, I fight myself. I'm like, oh, I want it to be out every day, and not every day, every week. But I'm like, nope, every other week, slow and steady. Especially since I'm doing everything myself. It's a lot of work. But I'm excited because your podcast. Let's see, you guys are at what, 93 published right now.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
So I think we'd have to have a party here coming up soon for the number 100, because that's happening. Really,
it's already in the works.
Yep. That's
okay. Well, thanks. Where's the invite, guys?
Oh, no,
come on.
You're definitely invited. It's just like, that is a known thing that John and I have talked about. It's like, I just moved in. I want to have a celebration that we made it to 100, because this, we've been seriously doing the podcast for 2 years, but we've been podcasting for like 6, but like with long breaks and a lot of bullshit and lost episodes. And when we were babies, we didn't know what we were doing, but seriously doing this.
We were also in college too at the beginning of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, we were in college.
I didn't realize you were doing this that long.
Have we ever told the story the official story?
We have not told the official story of the pod ever.
I feel like the time is now.
The time is now.
Do it.
Okay, so actually, I think it was the first time I listened to like Tim. I found out about podcasting. I was pretty late to the game, and someone's like, "You got to check out this guy named Joe Rogan and Tim Ferriss." So I listened to both of them, and I was like, "Yeah, this is what I want to do with my life." So I went to Best Buy and I used a credit card. I bought a laptop. And then I went on Amazon and I bought a microphone, like a AT2020 or Audio-Technica AT2020 microphone with a USB.
USB microphone.
Yep. So I bought that, and then I was walking around on campus at Oregon State, and I saw John. He's like, "Hey man, what are you doing?" I was like, "I'm going to record a podcast, dude. I've started a podcast. This is what I'm doing." And he looks at me and goes, "I'm in. Can I be in?" And I was like,
"Yeah,
really?" He's
wow.
like,
Well, hold on. You're leaving you're leaving out a detail. So like we met working at
Surplus.
Oregon State Surplus,
Best job
right?
ever.
And hung out. And then how long was it? Like I only worked there for like 6 months maybe. And I left, and then we didn't get in contact again for what, maybe a year or two.
Yeah, about that.
We were at the rec center Dixon in the sauna, and like I saw Rick enough around the weight room that a bunch of times I was like, boy, that looks like Rick. Is that Rick? I should go talk to Rick. Well, he looks really angry. I'm going to leave him alone. He's busy squatting, And then like, us sitting buck ass naked in the sauna. He's like, I'm doing a podcast. I was like, oh shit, I'm going to be an audio engineer. And he's like, oh, you want to be my sound guy? And I was like, fuck yeah. And then we interviewed I think the first one we did was Thomas Graham.
I think we'd done other interviews, but Thomas Graham was like the first big one, who was the one of the leading voices in nuclear non-proliferation, I believe, in the Reagan administration.
He wrote the treaties.
Yeah, he wrote a lot of the treaties. Yeah.
He's essentially like one of the people responsible for the end of the Cold War.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So an amazing person. He was in his like 80s and would fly from Virginia to Oregon State and teach a class a few nights a week, and was like, we're trying to get people like you in the government. You guys need to learn. Honestly, we're off on a tangent right now, but the motherfucker was right. I'll tell you a few things about him. Number one, his biggest fear was nuclear war. Number two, he was always about, we need to understand the Russians more. We have lost a lot of our knowledge base on Russian culture. There's no longer classes. We need more classes. We need to understand these people because it's a different philosophy, a different school of thought. They're of a Soviet mind, a different mind. We need to be able to understand them and communicate with them more. This is a problem. Okay. And this was, 10 years ago. I don't know, maybe like 6, 7. I don't even know if he's alive. Gosh. Anyways,
I'm pretty sure he's alive. I'd be surprised if
he talked to me. He's like, you should get a job in the government. If you've listened to me talk, that's not going to happen. But one of the things that struck me was during our interview, we used to have these kind of stupid, silly questions when it was.
He is alive still.
Okay,
he's 88.
Good. He's 88. Yeah, this guy was in his 80s traveling on a plane. Badass. Anyways, we used to have these questions. One, do you believe in Bigfoot? Because I think that's cool.
It's the Northwest. You have to have that question asked.
Back in the day. And then the other one was like, do you believe in aliens? And he sat and thought. And he goes, yeah, I believe in microorganisms. And I was like, okay, but all right, that makes sense. But I'm kind of thinking of like intelligent life. And he goes, yes, but I don't think we'll ever meet them. And I was like, why do you feel that way? And he goes, because I think any intelligent species that is technologically advanced has already destroyed themselves. And in the, I just completely went silent. And I was like, so you've dedicated your life to nuclear non-proliferation, and you still feel that, and he's like, yeah, that we will destroy ourselves. I 100%. We've had too many close calls as it is, and I think that's going to happen. I mean, the dude kind of foresaw all of this. I think that's probably what he's trying to tell us, but we were in our early 20s and we were too stupid to understand that, what's going on now. I'm sure he's been following that for decades, because there's decades of things that's going on with the Ukraine and whatnot, and the Russian conflict. And so I don't know how we got here, but we were talking about the ethos of the podcast. But yes, John and I have been in communication and been scheming on the podcast for like 6 or 7 years. But then like during COVID, I had a lot of time to myself. Yep. I had a lot of time to myself. I had a lot of soul searching. I was in great shape. I believed in myself for the first time in a long time. And I knew my power, and I knew what I was capable of. And a friend called me and asked me like, hey, how's that podcast going? How are you really trying on it? And that was one of the most difficult questions anyone's ever asked me, because one of my best friends is asking me this, and two, I'm not going to lie to him. And the answer was, I wasn't doing much, and I was letting John down. I was letting myself down, and it fucking hurt. And after that conversation, I called John and we talked for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I was like, listen, we need to do this, this, and this. And then his response to all of my responses was this: finally, motherfucker.
For real. No, I had been like, I was at that level since he was like, you want to be my sound guy? I was like, okay, let's start getting shit and let's do this.
Well, I was a little bit more poor at the time. So,
yes, I mean, so was I. Yeah.
So,
but I was ride or die from the start.
He was ride or die from the start. We've had people come and people go, but it's John and I. It's our baby, and I think that we're gonna do. We've talked about doing eventually. God willing, in the winter time, we're gonna do a few series on the Dogon people. We want to get into some investigative journalistic type podcasts. It's of some, maybe just me talking and outlining a story. There's a lot of different avenues that we're going to take this place, this space. Who knows? I think the Rick's Mind podcast is going to be the ethos of it all, but there's so many different forms of media that I think him and I would like to get into. But right now, we're just
too ambitious for our own good, and we're also like the same kind of personality that it's like, ooh, that looks fun, let's do it.
Yeah. The I would say that the best part of this is like I've changed. Like he's more of a dreamer. I used to be a dreamer, but when I'm a dreamer and he's a dreamer, nothing gets done. We just talk. No. So like I rein you in a little bit. I'm like, okay, we got to do this, this, and this first, and then we can do the other things.
Expand your. And I also too try to. I constantly push you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, that's 100% true, dude. That's 100%
true. But it's like you're not at all stuck in your ways or like don't like to do things or don't enjoy new situations or information. You just kind of like, you're so interested in so many things, you kind of just lock in on those and don't always tend to be like, well, I'm already doing this, so I can, we can't do this. And it's like, yeah, but this is really cool and here's why. And then you're like, oh, okay, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. And he's very patient with me because I say no a lot. Like I always say my immediate response. My immediate response to any of his, and it takes a special person to deal with me. It's like, no, we're not going to do that. Absolutely not. And then like a day later, I'll be like, I thought about it. You're a fucking genius, sir. Let's do it. So it just takes a while because I don't know why I am that way, but like we understand each other.
I've had the conversation with my wife several times when I'm like, I bring something up and you're like, no, we're not doing that. And then later I'll just be like, yeah, he said no, but like, I'm sure within a week we'll be moving that way. It'll be fine. And then like 2 days later, Rick will call and be like, dude, you're right. We got to do it. We're doing it now. And I was like, okay,
that's
awesome.
what it is. Yeah.
It's not like Rick's like, hey, John, I came up with this great idea, which happens to be not his idea. Just kidding.
No, I'm not. I am not that kind of person at all. I hate people like that. I think it's just a defense mechanism because generally, like everything that we're going to end up changing involves money, and I'm like, no. I think it's something I got from my dad, being a tight ass or whatever. I just like I want to think about it.
You can be, but like anytime it's a big expense, you're always just like, and then I have to like kind of like massage it just a little bit to be like, here's why we need to do it. Like finally you bought a microphone like this one after I sent it was like, hey, doesn't this sound nice? Isn't this cool? And you were like, oh my God, I'm going to buy one. And you bought one literally the next day.
Yeah.
Like,
that's good. Baby steps for Rick there.
It's a baby step. I'm a very baby step person. Yeah.
100%. See, my opinion when I heard this is like, get John what he needs, man. Because you're not having to edit, man. As someone has to edit stuff, that's a pretty sweet thing there.
You would know.
You guys have a good relationship.
It's like a mom and a dad in a family. It's like, Rick's he's the pocketbook. He's the one who's like running the show and, doing everything. And then I'm in the behind the scenes, just kind of setting shit up to make sure it just goes smoothly,
That's what you need. See, that's what works for you guys. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier is the foundation, like founding any project you're doing. It doesn't have to be a business. Who are your co-founders and do they supplement your skill set? Like I think about my wife, like I'm a dreamer, but I'm also a doer, but she's someone that will also bring me back to reality and say, okay, maybe we should just like stick on one thing. And that's actually with Tapestry. She's like, you're doing a million different things. Cause at the time I was like writing about beer for beer publications and, I have a failed TV pilot on Amazon, a craft beer failed TV pilot on Amazon, which is kind of random.
I think that's
I just forgot about that.
Do you ever think about resurrecting some of these projects?
Like, so, and I have a beer blog too, which I just renewed the domain that was in Squarespace, and it was really hard because like, I haven't updated this thing in 3.5 years, but I'm like, I hate to see it go. So, I guess I'm not sure. Like, what I want to do is I want to find some people to work with on projects, like really for the Successfully Depressed. That is, I think, and I've grown as a person. Like, I still like the beer stuff. I'm not into it like I used to be, because I also used to throw beer festivals. Like, there's so many things I used to do. Like, I had a period of like 10 years where I did a million different things, and I can't even remember them all.
Can I pause this? Like,
yeah.
How not like I'm the whole throwing a beer. What I want to do so bad at some point in my life, I want to do a concert series, and I feel like I want to get into the concert business because there's a lot of towns or all over the nation, right, where they're kind of sleepy towns, maybe really beautiful sleepy towns with maybe like a venue or a farm or something to where it wouldn't be that hard to throw a fucking concert / festival. And if you could partner with a local brewery and see if you could prove to them that you have ticket sales and they could get the rights and you could charge them a fee. Like, I just think that a hustle like that, like if you just did it one time, would be amazing. And I feel like the high of pulling something off like that, especially in a smaller town where you're bringing industry and you'd have people selling, you could make so much money. I just can't imagine what that would feel like. I feel like it'd feel fucking incredible.
So I've been involved in, I like to throw in events. I've been involved in a number of different events. And I helped start Portland Beer Week. Mm-hmm. And I'm not involved anymore. My friend who officially started, his name's Ezra. You know, we did we didn't do all the events, but we influenced like 100 beer events, like in 10 days or something. Mm-hmm. And so I did a rye beer fest. My wife likes rye beers, and at the time, no one was doing it a number of years ago. And I said, this is kind of I guess people earn brownie points different ways. I threw my wife a beer fest on a style that she liked. So that's what I did. I think that was kind of it's a baller move. No, mm-hmm. But she would say, how come around the house you're not so good about stuff? That would come back to that. So, but how about that one time I did that thing for you at the beer fest? No. So, I think when I'm in my right mindset of healthy body, healthy mind, I'm fearless. And that's when I'm willing to do it. I'll just do whatever I want. Like, as far as like, oh, this is a cool idea, I want to just try this out. And I think that's one reason which has been very helpful for me is that I've tried some different things out, and some I put a lot of effort into and some not, but I have a pretty long list of things I've accomplished. And so that kind of helps me, like when I take on new projects or come up with new ideas, I have a kind of a different perspective than just kind of like one thing. Like, I kind of move on. Like the beer world, I did that for a long time, and I haven't really been doing that for a while now. And I might bring back my beer fest next year on a small level. But now I'm trying to do something different, like successfully depressed. Like, this is really interesting to me. And so I want to find somebody to help me with the podcast or people that, and I'm not trying to make right now. This has nothing to do with any money. This is just something that I wanted to learn podcasting. I wanted to learn ways for self-awareness, ways to improve me and improve others, because the Successfully Depressed, basically the motto is, we're trying to help solopreneurs, navigate their mental health and their physical health, in life and in business. And so it's kind of these two-tiered things. And even if you don't start a business, it could be interesting for you if you work at a company. Cause I'm, like I said, trying to do some more research, interview people that, do the diversity training or HR managers, like how they're trying to, support their work staff. Because in my experience, I've worked for multiple companies that say they're the best places to work for in Oregon, and they're not, they're not. Like, in a lot of ways they can be, but they don't have certain, like mental health type programs and other diversity type programs and everything. So that's like my little tangent there. But I think what's great about what you guys have done is like 93 years, about to 100, you just learn so much in longevity. Cause that's what I keep telling myself. It's like, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. Like, just keep bringing it down, because why burn yourself out on something and then you're done in like 6 months and then you're like on to the next thing. And so that's where there's things that I do to try to make sure I don't do that. And sometimes I'm great at it and other times I'm not. So I have to tell these things to myself, like, okay, is this something I really want to do? Is this like an ego thing? I just like, oh, I want, attention or something. If it goes that far, that way too much, then I know that's a danger. That's not the right thing for me to do. If there's something that I feel like I'm passionate about and want to help people, then that's like more. So I've always been a passion person, and that's when I'm passionate, I just exude energy and I'm so excited. So like certain times in my life, like doing Tap Lister when I was in the tech incubator, that was amazing. I made all these other people starting businesses up and made friends with some of them, and just like, so for me, it's that kind of that culture and everything. So I'm glad that you guys have this relationship where you're kind of specializing in one thing, another person specializes in something else, and you've been working on it for a while, because it takes a long time to make this stuff. It could be like 5 more years before it's like blows up.
And that's what we talk about all the time, is like, we still suck. We've done 100 of these things, and I need to be a better host. John's pretty dialed in, but I need to be a better host. I need to get better, but we can always get better. And even if it takes us 20 years to get where we want to be, we're still going to be around. Like, cause we've built out a system well enough to where it's sustainable. John can still do other projects and whatnot. It's not a huge burden. It's not taking over our lives, because this isn't paying our bills yet. When it does pay our bills, we will gladly let this bitch take over our lives and consume us. Sure. But until that point happens, we needed to be able to set it up to where we could go feast famine. And we have
a very good system right now.
We have a very good system right now. Yeah.
And it's taken us, like, I mean, the other thing to add to what you were saying, Kerry, is definitely like, that's been my philosophy, this is a long con. This, like, I genuinely don't care if it takes 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, however we make it, that's the goal,
Yeah.
And just having that mindset to not be afraid to fail at things, and like not being stuck in the same idea. Like, I don't even know, what is it? This is like sort of like the 4th or 5th iteration of the idea that we've been doing, and it's constantly changing based on kind of, it's truly like every podcast. Yeah, I think not every podcast, but any podcast that's truly done by like a core group of people, a small group of people, is a work of art in a way. And like, this is our art, and our art changes based on whatever era we are in.
Yeah. John, I love that. That's a great, this is your art. And that, I would agree with that. And so my wife is a great artist. My parents are great artists. I am not at all. And so I never had that type of art, but like, my projects are kind of my art. I really realized the last year or two. I'm like, these are my arts. This is an expression of me. And so, and I'm fairly open book about things. So like, it's like, this is what you see is what you get. I'm not, sugarcoat anything, I don't like when people do that kind of stuff. And
one of the best things I learned in art school was learning about how not to assume what art is, because like, not to be political, but the idea of like objectivism in art, like art is XYZ with rigid rules, originates from fascism. It comes from the idea that, only classical Western art that is, like basically like Renaissance style, highly detailed paintings or sculptures, classical, that is the only kind of art, when that's bullshit. Art is whatever someone puts into something that they craft, whether it's a business or a sculpture or a song or a film, doesn't matter.
Well, there's a really good quote from the great Zach Morris at Saved by the Bell. What is art? Are we art? Is art art?
Yeah.
Noodle on that for a few minutes, guys.
You just dated yourself, dude.
I know. Hey. Yes, but I was like, do you guys know what Saved by the Bell is? I hope you do.
Yeah, we do. We got the tail end of that when we were kids, I think.
Yeah.
I never watched it, but I know of it.
I remember Step by Step too. And Steve
I did watch that.
Was it?
That was Family Matters.
Family Matters. Yeah, Family Matters. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. I like a lot of random pop culture references too. So.
Oh yeah, hell yeah. Well, Kerry, tell the good folks where they can find you. I want you to plug any social media, podcast, all that. Just books. You're gonna write a book someday. I can feel it.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. There's so for me, Successfully Depressed is on all the major Spotify, all the major podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, so forth. If you want to check out my website, kerryfinsand.com, it's KerryFinsand.com. My podcast lives on there. I'm also building out some other content on there, or I plan on, regarding the Successfully Depressed kind of business tips and mental health tips. That's a great place to find me. And then social handles are typically for me like K Finsand on most social profiles. But yeah, guys, I really appreciate the time on here, and I'm glad to see your success, and appreciate the help that you guys have given me and over the last number of months, and tips and whatnot on podcasting.
Anytime, man. I look forward to seeing your show rise, and I know that it's going to be a fantastic podcast, man. I'm glad it's launched. I'm glad that you're doing it, and I really appreciate you being on the show. You'll definitely be back, man. 100%.
Sounds good, brother.
Yep. Love you, folks. Thanks for listening. As always, we keep on keeping on. John, you better subscribe on YouTube or I will murder John. That's Rick's Mind Podcast. And we have a Clips channel as well. Rick's Mind Clips, right? I'm right there, John. Yeah. And leave us 5 stars if you deem us worthy on iTunes. That's also much appreciated. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Gazprov. No, I'm just kidding. I'm done with that joke. Anyways, we'll talk to you later, guys. Love you. Peace.